obvious.
Welcome back to Truth Hurts, where we expose corrupt politicians lying corporate media. I'm Jake Duesenberg, your host, broadcasting live from Roseville, Minnesota, in the belly of the beast, the liberal zombie apocalypse of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Our sponsor today is Alpine Chemistry, not in the belly of the beast, up in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Also brought to you by Elite Guardian, MN.com. Today's guest is running for governor of Minnesota, and when he announced he had a opponent that we've talked a lot about, someone I don't really care too much for, someone that's in the headlines again, even though, it was Monday he resigns and says he's not running again, and then he's in the headlines because we had a tragic event in the cities, and I'll probably get into that. My guest today is the CEO of MyPillow, a guy I think most people know about to some degree. Mike, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me on.
Let's just start right where I was talking about the headlines in the Twin Cities. We did a show yesterday showing all the different camera angles. Let me try to do this from a neutral standpoint at this stage. Somebody was shot by an ICE agent and was killed. We have two sides of the story. It's almost like an ink blot. If you don't think ICE has any reason to be here and you don't believe in enforcing immigration laws, you think she was killed in cold blood, like literally the mayor of Minneapolis said.
Mm-hmm.
And if you come from maybe the opposite side, maybe a more rational side where we can obviously enforce our immigration laws, and you believe that she was driving into him, which a vehicle is obviously a deadly weapon, she was in the wrong. That seems to be the two hard sides. I think most people fall somewhere in the middle. What do you think about this? I'm sure you've seen the angles, or maybe I'm wrong on that, but have you seen the camera angles, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, the first camera angle I seen was when everybody came out first, and I was, obviously it's tragic regardless of what, what happened, a lady losing her life. But I was in shock. I said, it didn't make sense to me. And then, of course, then they showed the other camera angle where he was hit by her car. And my thoughts of this is, one is, I believe that our mayor, our governor, they have driven this to people. Kristi Noem said it best when she was here. She says, it's been nothing but pushback. Go against ICE, go against ICE, go against law enforcement, go against law, go against, and they're driving this. They're pushing this narrative out there that this is a bad thing. And then you look back a few months ago in Washington, D.C., and what did that mayor say? This is a good thing. She says, hey, it's working. We just finished I think it was the record year of all time for murder rate in the United States and for other violent crimes. And you look at this, it's like there's a couple things here. One is, like Kristi Noem said, the guy was doing a shop. A car is a weapon. I mean, a vehicle is a weapon. Now, why was it? Then you heard reports that all day long that she was blocking them. Well, why? Why do you hear? Are they just going to all day long? These ICE agents are just pushed back, stopped, hated, by in the streets by these. And I also heard that maybe that this lady was from Colorado. Now I don't know if that's true. Not even from our state. I don't know. I've heard different rumors. And was she, are these people brought in to just push back and protest on? And we don't know. And I think that hasn't been proven yet. But
can I bring up something real quick? There's a really interesting article. I'm just going to put up on the screen here. This is from the Star Tribune on December 30th. The Patriot Carla Nelson kind of alluded to this to me. She sent me a text here. It says, inside the organized resistance to ICE in Minnesota, and it literally details how they do this. Basically passing around, having people staged in certain places, and then passing around, I think, using signal. But it's becoming a much more sophisticated thing where they're actually, sending up patrols, and you're actually hearing politicians use that term. It says, when Clark patrols Lake Street, she does it for hours at once, linked to a signal call with other activists roving the city. Their goal is to find arrests and progress and blast information out to protesters who can amass at moment's notice. In past raids, dozens of protesters linking arms and blasting whistles with their phones aimed at agents have succeeded in blocking arrests. Some of these confrontations have escalated with protesters lobbing snowballs and agents dousing crowds with pepper spray that dyes the snow orange. Okay, the way I look at this, Mike, is I mean, I'm very much against a very activated and mobilized federal law enforcement, inside the states for obvious reasons. I don't know. They only raided the home of a former president, what was that, 2 years ago?
Right.
But from my understanding is they are literally going after some really bad people, sex traffickers,
Right.
Suspected murderers. And it seems like the left side of the political aisle believes because they enforce immigration laws, which they don't seem to agree with at all, right? Like there is no border. Anyone can be here and take resources from our community, which resources are fine, are limited, that anything is justified, including now a woman, as you mentioned, seemed to be harassing and blocking law enforcement operations all morning, which resulted in her death.
Right. This is what's wrong with the word, even with the word protest. I can go back, I don't know, I think it's probably 8 years, and the Black Lives Matter was the big thing. They were even doing it at the state fair. They were gonna make people harass them with going into the state fair. But what happened during that time? I remember they blocked off 35W. My workers couldn't get to work. Now,
Right.
if you and I stood in the middle of 35W, you're going to get arrested. That's not a protest when you shut people's work and livelihoods off. And they had a guy just yesterday, this black guy downtown. He got out of his car and flipped out. Get out of my way. I need to go through here. And he's shoving people back. That's not a protest. A protest. Go protest, and you have your signs. Get your area. A lot of states and cities, you actually sign up for that. Here's where we're going to have our protest. Okay, you don't block off roads, and you don't what they were doing. They're blocking ICE from doing what they're supposed to be doing and getting bad people. And that's what
Aren't we all for that? I mean,
letting
what's going on? What's going on here? Aren't we for getting these bad people off the streets? It seems
Yeah,
like
it's common sense, and Minnesota, we've all threw common sense out the window, and it's disgusting. You can go back in time you can pick anything. This is how common sense has been thrown. You can pick anything. Say what I'm very familiar with: election crime, machines, right? Voting machine. Do you know who is the biggest advocate to get rid of the voting machines in the United States? Amy Klobuchar. In 2018, Amy Klobuchar was in the movie Kill Chain. She named the machine companies. We've got to get rid of them. We've got to go to paper ballots and count it. And she didn't get sued. I raised my hand and let's sue them. Let's start this lawfare. Everything is flipped on its head. Even the illegals, all the illegals coming in. You can go back in time, and all the Democrats said, "Hey, we got to stop them. We can't let them. They can't let them in." And so it's like, and Minnesota is at the tip of the spear that has been turned completely upside down. A protest is not. You're not protesting when you're out there stopping citizens from getting to work, emergency vehicles getting through, law enforcement getting through. You know what? If you don't want something to happen, get out of the way. Don't do that. It's illegal.
and
these
has
things
terrible
are illegal.
and can have terrible consequences, as we just
That's
learned.
right.
Glenn Cotton's got a $30 Rumble rant. By the way, if you guys want to interrupt us anytime, hit that Rumble rant button. Most people don't watch live, but if you're watching live, you can do that. Any questions you have for Mike, we can read them on air. He says, keep up the hard work, Jake. Well, thanks. I'm glad I got you fooled in thinking this is hard work. Actually, we've done 3 shows already this week. Yeah, and Mike, you do shows, so you know it. It
Yes,
is. Maybe it's a
absolutely.
little hard work.
Yeah.
You mentioned Amy Klobuchar. I think that's interesting. So the week started out very interesting for anyone running for governor or interested in the gubernatorial race. Tim Walz dropped out. And you mentioned Amy Klobuchar, which elephant in the room sounds like the person they're trying to insert in here as the next candidate. So what are your thoughts on Walz dropping out and potentiality of Amy Klobuchar running?
Amy's a little more politically and a little more sneakier than Walz. I mean, she's very I don't know, seasoned is the word. I've seen her do things. She used to have a booth right out in front of my booth at the state fair. But
I always thought that was funny.
I watched her once. This is kind of a classic. She missed an event out in western Minnesota, as the story goes, and the headlines in the Tribune. She just didn't show up, And in our towns in Minnesota, as you know, the small towns, they have these big Quonset, these old Quonsets where people come from miles around to, like they had the old bands or the old dances, right? Well, so that's where this
Mhm.
was going to be held, and Amy didn't show up. But then the headlines of the Tribune. Amy Klobuchar apologizes. She calls everybody in the town. But people didn't know, population 8. There were 8 people in the town. But I mean, just, and you know what I say to Amy is this was under her watch too, all this fraud, all these stuff going on. I don't care. It was under your watch. If you didn't know what was going on, and I mean, I find that hard to believe. But when things came out here even a year ago on KSCP about the fraud, and everybody has said, "Man, nobody did anything." Well, where was your voice, Amy?
Right.
Where was your voice? So I think she's going to be in for. And then they got, I forget what it's called. That she's you keep seeing these rumors that she did something else with campaign money, but I think,
Smurfing.
yeah, smurfing. That's what it
Yeah.
was. And so I think she'll get attacked. Just it's different nowadays. You're gonna get exposed. You better be careful for what you wish for, Amy. That's all I have to say.
You're the only gubernatorial candidate I've talked to, I think, and then since Walz's announcement, and certainly the only one I've had on the show. What was it like knowing that Tim Walz was no longer going to be your opponent? I mean, he seemed to be very vulnerable.
Oh yeah,
Has
yeah,
to change things.
yeah. I think I expected it because I know I've been dealing with the guy personally, back and forth, going all the way back to the China virus. And when I had masks for the state before I knew they didn't work, and he wouldn't accept them until after the election because I was so branded with Donald Trump. And we went round and round on him trying to close the churches here in Minnesota back
Yep.
then. I was going to do mass distribution points. And by the way, when you're there on Sunday morning, you could listen to someone. I mean, it was, but just disgusting when he put 10 people in our houses for Thanksgiving and a neighbor could turn you in and you get 90 days in jail. But yeah, like you say, I think it would have been easy for anybody. I mean, people they're going, okay, seeing through that. So it didn't surprise me, but was I disappointed? No, I think whoever they put up, I don't think it's going to matter. I think one thing, people are so what do you call brainwashed by the Minnesota media, and what the media doesn't tell you. You got
Mhm.
people that still think Waltz was a great guy, no matter what happened,
Right.
and so we were up against that. He did have a name, that name, bad or good. When you hide the fact, when you hide this, when our local media hides all this, the fraud's gotten so big they can't hide it anymore. But boy,
Right.
what a big deflection this is yesterday, when now they can just deflect and what happened to that fraud in Minnesota, but now I think social media and our voices are too big nowadays, and that you can't hide this stuff anymore. So the local media better wake up. And I'm talking about the Star and Tribune. I told those guys when I gave them embargo when I announced I was running for governor. I said, you know what? You guys realize you're the worst paper in the United States. I bashed them every second. And I said, Ryan goes, yeah, I know, Mike. I know you're going to continue to bash this. I said, I'll give you an embargo, but I'll tell you what, you better not leak this early because I want to make this big announcement. And he, respectively, he did, but there's very few there that will still, I used to be their big hero back before I got into helping the president and the elections, and you go back in the day, I was our local media. I could walk across the street. They go, Mike, how many more people are you hiring that are ex-addicts? How many veterans are you hiring? That was the American dream on steroids, going from a crack cocaine addict in the streets of Minneapolis to building this great company by the grace of God and freeing myself of all the addictions and all the stuff I did downtown. Then yet with Teen Challenge, the Union Gospel, putting millions into helping people around the country, not just the state, but around the country. And boy, overnight, you know, I meet Donald Trump, and I never voted in my life, and I meet him at a divine appointment. He reaches out to me, but in 2016 in August, to get an opinion of a guy that's making his products here in the U.S. I come back from that meeting and I go, I did a press release. Hey, I met Donald Trump, and didn't even say what we talked about. and the media turned on me, and they've never looked back. Like I was some kind of, you know, terrible person. You know, I think they said, Mike Lindell was this drug guy. I'm going. I already wrote a book on it. You're not surprising anyone, right? And but they've been terrible here, and it's what they don't tell the public. You know, they tried to spin it last night with this terrible tragedy down there. They tried to spin that, and one of the this was on Fox, local Fox. They called it. She goes, and this murder. I didn't know it was a murder. You don't call it a murder. You know, this is disgusting what they did on that channel last night.
You know, I guess I'm only somewhat in the know of your story here. You weren't at all involved in politics. You didn't even vote prior to 2016.
I had never voted in my life. I was a crack cocaine addict. I had.
Well, but hold on. You say you were a crack cocaine addict, like not in 2015, right? Like that. This is a while ago.
I quit everything. I quit everything. I was a very functioning addict for years. I lived in Minnesota all my life. I owned bars. I was always an entrepreneur. I did everything myself, built it from scratch. I had bars in Carver County, one for 13 years. Not a good place for an addict. But I had, it was alcohol, gambling, cocaine, and it got into crack cocaine in early 2000s. And I spent a lot of time downtown, but I invented MyPillow in 2004. So I kind of took, at the same time I was on crack, but I would almost like I was living two different lives here. I was so focused on inventing this pillow and getting it out there. And when I got it out there, the box stores had all turned me down, but so I said, okay, I'll do home shows and fairs. And I did all over Minnesota. That's all I did for a year with a pickup truck and bringing them around. And I lost a 20-year marriage, and everything was crumbling over here. And we ended up
because of the addiction?
Because of the addictions, yeah. We were actually labeling pillows in our living room, and everything was kind of coming down. And in 2008.
By the way, do you have kids from that time?
Yeah, four kids, grandkids. Okay. Yeah, I was a very functioning addict for a long time.
Okay.
But still, got my book. We got my book. What are the odds from crack addict to CEO? That one picture you see on there, in February of 2008, I was downtown Minneapolis, and I had been up for like almost 2 weeks on crack, and I came out of one of my drug dealers' bedrooms, and all three of the big drug dealers in the cities were there. They all knew of each other, but they had never met. And I go, "What are you guys doing?" They go, "You've been up for almost 2 weeks. We're cutting you off." I go, "What is this, an intervention?" He goes, "You call it whatever you want, Mike." And he goes, and two of them left in disgust. The other one sat there with me, and one went and got the word out in the streets. But he looked over, and I seen, and he finally fell asleep. I was carpet farming by then and scraping the pipe, and I went out, snuck out to the streets of Minneapolis then at 2:30 in the morning, and I couldn't buy crack anywhere. They had gotten the word out. I came back upstairs, and he's sitting up for me. This is an hour later. He said, "How'd that work out for you?" And I said, and I was so upset. And he goes, "Man, you've been telling us for years you're going to quit someday, and you're going to come back and help us all out of this addiction world we're living in." And he said, "We're not going to let you die on us." He said, "Give me your phone. I'm going to take a picture for that book you said you're going to write someday." That's the picture he took that night. Now, two of them guys work for me. They're born again Christians. And God freed me of everything on January 16th, 2009, where I quit everything overnight. I've never looked back. And
why is that? Like, was there a moment, or was it just something that came after?
That was by then it was like, I think in my book I phrased it like this: I knew I had a big calling. We all have callings, and I knew I had a big calling. But back in the day, I worked at a drive-in movie theater, and we'd have a first feature and a second feature. And I felt that if I waited one more day, because I was going to quit, I would always tell I'm going to quit. We're going to quit everything. I'm going to come back and help everybody get out of addiction. But that day, I knew that if I waited one more day, the second feature of my life wouldn't be an option. It would be wherever this terrible path I was on was going to bring me. And at that time, I always looked at, I used mathematics to prove that God exists. I said, here's a 1 in a million that would happen, or a 1 in a billion. And this is absolutely a miracle. When do you add them together and consider it a miracle? That a miracle, this was impossible. And but that night I had one prayer to God. I said, I want to wake up in the morning and never have the desire again and I'll do, and realize I didn't have any money left. I made sure that I had, but money,
Mhm.
addicts are very resourceful. It really doesn't. They say, oh, I hit bottom, I'm out of money. Big deal. Addicts are very resourceful. And so when I woke up the next day, the desire was gone. The story goes on from there. I actually, 2 months later, I went to a Living Word church, Living Free, a treatment center there, an outpatient up in the north of the cities. And I walked in there and I wanted to find out why I was an addict in the first place. And I went in and the counselor the night before I meeting him and yeah, I said, I'm just coming here. I said, I used to be a crack cocaine addict. I quit 2 months ago. I used to be an addict in every way. And I'm going to I'm writing a book. I invented this pillow and I said, I'm going to have a big platform someday. It's going to help millions of people. And he went home and told his wife that night. He said, you should have seen this guy that came in higher than a kite. I said, this guy's, crazy. And he's actually been with me when I came out of addiction. I went around the country speaking at churches and bringing people. That's what I thought I'd be doing, And but he actually was there on many of those speaking events. And everything Mike said came to fruition. And I started the Lindell Recovery Network.org. It's free for addicts online to get off addiction and get to Jesus. By the way, Keith Ellison has been attacking that for over a year, and it's disgusting. The guy's disgusting. But the answer to question then, and then I had invented MyPillow in 2004. By when I came out of addiction, it was taken. It was there are some bad people had taken the company. I got that all back through one of the things during my.
How big was the company at that point?
I did fairs and shows, so he was, I'd taken maybe 100,000 a year, but I had other people doing fairs and shows and home shows, but that it was taken from me. By some bad people. And then because I never broke my word, that's one of the things I kept was my word during all those addiction days. If I said I was coming to that show, I wouldn't be doing drugs at a show at the state fair. Or if I was a home show at Eden Prairie Mall where I started out or anything, I'd be there doing, selling pillows and so focused. And then it got to be 2011 and I said, you guys, I got my friends and family together because no box stores would take MyPillow. And we were just doing all these shows. I said, I got a dream of an infomercial. It said it's going to be the biggest one in history. And we all pooled our money and we went to film it in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I wanted a live audience. And back then, if you read my book, I couldn't talk to people. When I came out of addiction, I had fear of rejection. And you don't get rejection if you don't talk. I had fear of public speaking, anything like that. I mean, it was horrible. It was like being in an elevator for me all the time, like that uncomfortable feeling. Yeah, like, what do I say? What do I talk? And so we went to do this infomercial the night before. And I had a dream of real audience and stuff. And it was just a friend of mine that I did shows with, but they brought a real producer in from California. And we were doing our reads. And he texts the other guy, said, this is the worst guy I've ever seen. He'll never make it on TV. And he goes, just be quiet. He's paying you. And well, I went to do it the next day and the live audience was there. And I just went, ah! And it took 2 hours before I could do one line. And finally I said, can you just bring a table in here and get rid of the teleprompter? I just want to do it naturally like I did at shows all over Minnesota for years, going town to town with a table in front of me and selling. And it launched October 7, 2011. I had 15 employees at that time. 40 days later, I had 500. And it was the number one infomercial in the world by December 26th of 2011.
Yeah, that's how we know you. Yeah, we saw you on our TV many times.
But then let's fast forward. So up to 2015, when Donald Trump came down that escalator. Now, I'd had a dream I was going to meet Donald Trump. I had this dream, and I'm going, why would I want to meet him? I never watched The Apprentice. I had lost money in his casinos at one time. That's all I knew about him. Well, that dream came to fruition in August of 2016. He reached out to me and said, Mike, would you meet me at Trump Hotel on August 15th or whatever? And reaching out to me. And it was it was an amazing meeting when I went out there. But anyway, up until that point, I didn't know anything about politics. I had never voted. I didn't know a filibuster from a millibuster. I didn't know a Democrat from a Republican. I didn't think politics mattered at all. And obviously, after I met him and I went all in with that first press release, and I've never looked back. I've been a
Why? What is it about that? I mean, that's what I don't understand. I mean, at that point, I wasn't very keen on Donald Trump. He is a former Democrat.
Here's what happened. You didn't have the benefit of meeting him. Here's what happened. When he reached out to me, and I'll tell this story, he reached out to me and I'm going, so I flew out to New York and probably been there one time in my life, if that. And I met him at 10 a.m. on August 15th. And they said, no, you're not going to meet him alone. And I didn't know what he wanted me for, a donation, or whatever. I didn't, believe me, I probably wasn't even going to vote then. I didn't, like I say, I didn't think it affected me. Well, anyway, and they said, whatever you do, don't tell him you were an addict. And I get in there.
He's been clean his whole life. It's crazy.
Yeah, his whole life, right. But his brother died of alcoholism. And it fell
right.
Anyway, in the book, I explain that divine appointment, and which for me, I look at things that, where God's got his hand in. It was the odds of me being called for whatever. It was just very strange. But I get in there and people get peeled off, and it ends up the meeting was just him and I as I walked in there. And he said, Mike, are you a Christian? You always wear your cross on TV. I said, yes, Mr. Trump. And this is a divine appointment. And one of the first things as we started talking, I said, I used to be a crack addict. And I kind of looked at him like this, like, I didn't care what they said to me. I was just open about, and he said, I'm going to stop the drugs pouring in. He said, and I told him I was going to have this network to help addiction. But his big thing for having me there was he wanted to know my opinion on what it was like making stuff here in the United States. Because at that time, I had 1,500 employees. I had so many employees and spinoffs of other companies that were relying on MyPillow. But he wanted to know that so he could. One thing people don't know about him is he very much is a vacuum of information. He'll take everybody's opinion. And when I walked out of there, it was 40 minutes later, and I'm going, wow, I've never met a president before, any politician for that matter. But I'm going, what he's saying was problem solution. And he's telling me this was like two businessmen talking, but it was just amazing. And I told my wife, I said, man, you won't believe it. I said, I got to find out if this is even real. He didn't ask me for money or nothing. And I went and talked to his employees, and a lot of them that day. And every one of them said the same thing. Great boss, great leader, great man. But interesting enough, every one of them had an individual story to tell how he had helped them for no strings attached individually. And people didn't even know, a lot of them didn't even know about it. And it was kind of reminding me, you can learn a lot about someone, about their employees. And when he ran in 2016, they tried to get his employees to lie and everything. None of them came forward with anything but good. So anyway, when I got back to Minnesota and I just did a press release, I said, you know what? I got to tell people what I just seen there because I had an advantage over everybody, because of what I had seen. And I'm a pretty good judge of character when I had bars for 13 years. And if you read my book, it's, I've been in Mexico getting my head cut off by the cartels on a family vacation. That's how the book opens. And so you have to read Rome and all these things. And I just think he had no hidden agenda. He was very open. So I did that press release then, and I was completely attacked. I think the Star and Tribune said, the biggest drug dealer in the Twin Cities. My drug dealer said, even he never dealt a drug in his life. He tried to rid Minneapolis of drugs by doing them all. It was just a complete attack I never had before. And then that's when the Better Business Bureau, which started here in Minnesota, lowered MyPillow from an A+ to an F because of that, because I went all in for Donald Trump. And I'm going, what are people attacking me for? I got to meet the guy, and I think he'd be a good president. And so I never let up on that. I could have backed off then and said, oh, no, I don't want my company destroyed, but I won't do that. When I'm all in, I'm all in, and I do my due diligence. And you could not do better due diligence than I did by getting to meet the man. And do I agree on everything he does? No, of course not. But
what's the big difference you have with Donald Trump?
Not too much. We became very good friends, and but I see so many similarities. Like if I watch him, and I have one gift, and that might be, I would say, multitasking, able to do all these things like my business at MyPillow. Like we've been the most attacked company in history. I've been able to keep the ship right where no other company could have withstood what we were by our own government attacking, called Operation Arctic Frost, that attacked by the Biden administration attacking MyPillow and 92 other individuals. But what they, what he, it's mostly, he'll just ask me. He asks me a lot of marketing. He really respects my marketing. With all the being the most seen person probably on TV. Tens of millions of times with my commercials that went, and it's a very unique, um, um, I guess, marketing plan. It's not advertising. It's not branding. What if you had to live on this one's ad in this moment in time? You better bring enough back to break even on that, or make money on it. And if he, I guess one of the things, if I had to say, was when the vaccine came in, I said you can't win either way there. That was an anomaly in history. I said, go against any mandates that were ever out there, and I said, and leave it at that. And he did. I think. But at first, remember, he was all for it. But he didn't know. I mean, I think it's things where you're going into the unknowns, these anomalies, and that happened to us. And I think he was duped at a lot of things back then because, like you say, what are you going to go by? And
Well, can I ask this here? And I don't want to go too far into it. Obviously, the media was going to want to make this next election all about Trump. But the one thing
right,
that puzzles me about him, and where I've probably been the most critical, is the Epstein files. I don't know if he particularly campaigned on it, but certainly all of his surrogates, including his son Don Jr., campaigned about releasing it. And I can't imagine an issue he bundled more than this, to the point where he literally lied to us and then said, if you're with this hoax, you're not one of my supporters. And I'm like, a lot of us voted for you, Donald Trump, but we think this is a very important thing. A guy that worked for Mossad, a guy that was exploiting minors for sexual acts and probably delivering them to other people of power. And you don't think this is a very important thing, to the point where he's even blocking the release of it today against the law that's been done, at least his Department of Justice.
we've never talked about that ever. But I will
Well,
say
I'm sure
this.
you haven't. Yeah.
No, but I will tell you this. If I had to guess, okay, we all know, everybody knows he kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago way in the early 2000s.
Right.
Everybody was friends. Everybody's got pictures with him. Everybody's got pictures of me. More bad people than you could ever name, because I take pictures with everybody. Okay, so you got that. I think this is more political. I think that. And I think he's even said it. Hey, a lot of people are going to get hurt. And I think, you had Marjorie Taylor Greene going, hey, what about these women? And what about the promises to all of us? That's what
Mhm.
she's saying. And we don't know. Hopefully we will get to that. But I do not believe it's about him. I think it's about other politics within that. Like, you wait, okay, everyone's going to be upset over here, but now that we know this here, what will this manifest to here? You know what I mean by that? And I don't know what that is. I mean, there's obviously
Okay, so you're as much in the dark as all
I'm
of
as
us. But
much in the
I
dark. I can only say that because I've seen people. I will tell you that I've seen people, politicians, that he hangs around, and it's kind of like one of these things where these are bad. These are some bad ones, and I'm not going to name who they are, but there's bad ones, and I've told them, and it's kind of like you have to. If you lose them, do you lose a piece? God uses all things for good for those who believe, and it's kind of like that, where him and I will talk about that. If you have, this is very bad over here, but
Mhm.
if you have to use this to get to a good place here, if I'll tell you, my wife and I talk
Well,
about
hold
this.
on. Let me push back a little bit on that.
Yeah,
But he's lying to us. And so, and I'm a Christian as well. And it's like, but that's never the right course. Like, once you start lying to me, so obviously, I'm done. Like, you can't lie to me and act like you got some kind of good. I mean, otherwise, you're contrary to basically what the Bible says, and you're contrary to just
right.
what
Well,
we've
but
learned
you're
over life.
forgiven for your sins too. I mean, there's
Oh yeah,
people out there.
100%.
There's lies. There's lies, and then there's. I mean, where do you draw the line of exaggerations? I just watched last night. They had it on TV last night of Donald Trump's lies. He lied about the crowd size or whatever.
That
You know,
that I don't give a crap
no,
about.
no, no,
Anyone that
I
cares
know,
about that is so
I
dumb.
understand, I
Right.
understand that. The Epstein thing, if you're going to cherry pick one thing out, um, I don't know the answer. But what if all of a sudden he said, "Hey, me telling you this was worth this because told you that." Now, but you put it this way, I don't believe that Pam Bondi. I know her very well. She's a friend. Bongino, the president, all these people that said, "Hey, we're going to get in there and we're going to release it." Obviously, there's something that was there that made him. They were telling the truth at the time. I really believe that, but
Mhm.
now they can't do it, so it becomes a lie. Do you follow that? How
Yeah,
many
right, but that's the
how
problem
many
is
times
I
have you
don't I'm against
personally?
politicians lying to us.
I can tell. No, at the time, need to understand what I'm saying.
Well,
This
but
is
I'm saying lying to us
at
now,
the
right? They're
time
lying
you
to
were
us.
saying it then.
Yeah.
And okay, it wasn't a lie. That's what I'm saying. I don't believe it was a lie then. I believe he was going to put it out. She was going to put it out. She even said it's on my desk. I can't wait. Right
Yeah.
now, because and now what he is and what they've said since is, if they're saying no, we said it back then, but we can't do it now. They've said that. Did that make that then become a lie? You know how many things I've said at the time where I pick anything. Hey, you know what? I'm going to do this. My wife and I talk about this all the time. I'm going to do this. I'm going to call it this day, and something comes up. Now it turns into a lie. But when I said it, I meant it. You follow me? I really believe when Donald Trump said it, when Pam Bondi said it, they meant it. There's something we're missing here that turned that into a lie. Do you follow me?
Yeah, I
That's what
think you're
I'm saying.
rationalizing what is currently being the lies that are currently being told to us from him. But you know what? I don't want to
Now, the
do
one
this.
that they said they were coming out with everything, what was it in December? Now that's a lie if it didn't all come out. You know what I mean?
Well, and clearly they didn't because now they're
Right,
still
right.
now they're
That's
forced to release it and they're releasing stuff that apparently didn't exist.
right.
Mike,
That's
I don't want to go down this road though,
right.
because this is what the media is going to try to do. They're going to try to paint you, as Trump's guy, and then the whole
Now,
campaign's about that. So I want to learn a little bit more about you. Let's
the Trump, you know what? I went into this. I want to tell everybody this. I didn't go ask the president for his endorsement. Okay. I told him I was running. I didn't ask him for his endorsement. I told him in August I'm thinking of running. He just said he didn't even say anything. Now he looked at me and he was kind of rapping in his head, and uh, and then I told him 3 days before I announced I didn't call and ask him for endorsement because there's a couple reasons. I want Minnesota to know I'm not running contingent on an endorsement. I'm running because I know I can
right.
secure our state and fix everything. And you could pick any topic. I'll give you one example right now.
Can I stop
Uh,
you, Mike? Do you
yeah.
believe he's endorsed you at this point?
What? No, he didn't. His endorse me.
Okay,
Who
yeah,
said
because
that?
it is kind of like it almost sounded like he was. You're
No,
obviously
that's not. I even told my media, I have Lindell TV. I called him up. I said, that's not an endorsement. When
right,
he
right, yeah,
endorses someone, he puts out an official, I'm 100%
right.
behind, blah, 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 blah. And he tells about, no, him and I have been friends. He put out a thing going, of all the things, all the attacks I've been under, Mike deserves to be governor. He didn't say he's endorsing me.
Right,
He
yeah.
said, you know what? You should probably look at him and take him serious as a candidate. He's fought for this country and fought for my state, and that's basically what he was saying. You guys should look at him. Now, what I believe, if he doesn't believe I'm the best candidate, he ain't endorsing me. I will tell you that right now. That's a fact. And that's it.
What would
So
that mean to you, by the way, if he looked at you and said and basically endorsed one of your opponents? What would that mean to you?
then that would mean that they have better policies or better things ways to fix things.
Okay.
If he endorsed them based on that, but nobody does, and I could go right down the line. And one of the first ones I do want to tell you this one.
Sure.
This is a big one. This is the welfare systems that all the frauds in. I don't care which one it is. There's like 10 buckets, right? All that
Mhm.
you get free healthcare, free this, free that, whatever. Well, you take the fraud out. Let's just take the fraud out. These welfare platforms they don't work. They don't work the way they should. They never have. For 10 years now, I've been working on, it was called the Lindell Foundation. I would taking private sector money. It's like, and we tested it in Detroit. I built this amazing system. I was the government, the wraparound of all these. There's people that want to give from the private sector, but they want to give to certain things. So imagine like this huge give, send, go thing. Well, I want to support homeless. So you have this private sector money. I tested this in Detroit, 80%. It was 80% less than what the cost would have been. It was just all taxes based on these welfare
Well, I
platforms.
believe that.
We have that program, by the way. That's another one that Keith Ellison. I put it on a shelf at the beginning of the virus, and when I got all involved with the election platforms, the machine. But Keith Ellison also attacked that. But you guys, it's sitting there. Minneapolis and St. Paul, they will be. This will be plug-in in Minnesota. You take these welfare things, we take the fraud out. Now, it's almost a plug-in. I mean, it's in place. And what you're going to do, you're going to take the cost of them. First of all, you're going to see if it's worth even doing, right? And you got to make it so that people aren't dependent on all these things. You got to have an end game, right?
Right. Well, the Democrats don't believe that, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
well,
But
you
do.
do. You have to have an
Yeah,
end
we
game.
do.
And then you have, so these are vetted needs. This is what I did in Detroit. These are vetted needs. And who helped me with this? The Salvation Army, who I put millions into, Teen Challenge, Union Gospel. They had the needs. So we had private sector money out here. And man, it was like Gibson goes, I'm going to help the homeless. You know what? I want my money going to the, the addiction, people in addiction. And people want to help, but they don't want their taxes and stuff going to stuff especially that they're totally against. So this will be the most amazing system. Minnesota will be the prototype, and this will be copied nationally immediately, as fast as we can get, hopefully before this president's out of office, because it takes your taxes down, and then you can do a couple things where you don't have to tax the people.
You got me on that one.
Yeah, how about this? How about downtown? The downtowns are becoming like Portland. The other day, someone was walking in Portland going, it's really safe here. Yeah, because there's no people downtown anymore. You go downtown Minneapolis. I was there before Christmas, and the shopping malls, the small businesses, people are afraid. They're either afraid or everybody's shopping online more than they should. And you know what we can do to balance that? And MyPillow's all online. You take your sales tax. If you go to a boxer and stuff, you should pay zero sales tax. Things should be, you got to even the playing field so people have a benefit to go there rather than sitting at home like a zombie and buying everything off Amazon and everything online. We need to fill these places up again, but also you have to be safe. Safety is a huge thing.
Right.
I happen to know a guy, I'm very good friends, and he works for me, Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor. When he cleaned up New York and made it the safest place in the country, I've got that blueprint. He's going to be helping me on that. I have advisors. I'll give you one more. This is a good one. These are my three biggies. What do you do with the homeless and the addiction people, all these people in the street? And what do you do with, in 1972, I believe it was, a movie came out called One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And then Geraldo Rivera went into these centers and said, is this really going on? And it was. So 3 million people got released into basically the streets in the United States. They say it now could be as high as 20 to 25 million people that have mental problems in our street. So you have the homeless, the mental people, and then you have the addiction people. Well, Ben Carson, another very good friend of mine, and when he was Secretary of HUD, he came up, and his people came up with this amazing program. And the president went to LA, and they agreed, and so did the governor of California. This was going to be the prototype there. Here's what it is, everybody. You have government, you have federal land, and you have federal facilities. And it's almost like a tent city. You take everybody off the streets, and you bring them there and you sort them, okay? So you're taking the people that have it. Let's do addiction first. And you put them in places like Teen Challenge and Salvation Army, the places that work, the faith-based centers. Then you take the mental people. Now you open them, the institutions up again, because we have the technology now we didn't have in 1972. And you get these people the real help they need. Then you take your last bucket, the homeless. All the homeless out there, a lot of them can work, and a lot of them now are just doing it as a way of life, and you get them taken care of. It's amazing, and you know why that didn't get off? because it was January of 2020, right before the virus. But guess who's got the blueprints for that? I do. Talk to Ben weekly. So these are three big things we're going to have here in Minnesota.
So if I can kind of break down, I think the initial thing you were saying to me is your idea is to shift a lot of these welfare programs into the private sector as not just
100%.
not just big cost savings, but also to really eliminate the fraud. And Mike, you're preaching choir in this one because we've been just hounding on Republicans as well who keep funding these programs. And
Yeah.
it's funny, this Nick Shirley video goes viral, and all of a sudden the nation finds out about the CCAP program we've been talking about since 2018. And we're
Right.
going, why are we funding people's childcare? Actually, more
Right.
importantly, why is the federal government and the state government doing it? Like, if a government's going to do it,
Right.
let it be the county or
And,
the
and,
city.
and
Like, why are we doing this?
why are we doing? And think of this: some of it is needed. You think of all the tax dollars that were stolen. What about people that really needed it? You go back to food and healthcare, the autism, all these different things they stole from us. But
Mhm.
you get that money back. But then you really vet these programs. And you know what? If you're using people in the private sector, your millionaires and billionaires, they do want to help. I know this
They
from
do,
when they
yes,
set
they're
this
very
up,
giving.
but they want to help to things they're partial to. So when you
Right.
imagine a big screen, a big of give send go. So you got billionaire guy over here. I'm going to cover all Minnesota's 50% of this, whatever it is. Okay. And and then you have the needs, and you have a ticker on there. How much is needed for that quarter? Now, if anything that doesn't get covered, okay. And by the way, 100% of his money goes to the need, because the wraparound, which I was the government, I put millions of dollars. I was acting as the government when we set these up, and I tested in even some other country to see how it would work on a horizontal scale. So I was the government. Well, the cost, if I would have done it myself, it was 80% less. So think of the government now is wraparounds the expenses, including even credit card fees, whatever. It's all the expenses. So that guy, he's going, wow, 100% of my money goes right to the need. Now, if a need's not met, that's where the government puts in their money. So your tax dollar, that 100% becomes 20%, but it's 20% of things we vetted that are real needs, and that are not just things to get people dependent on our tax dollars. It's
Right.
a beautiful program, probably one of the best programs that you'll ever see that will correct all the welfare programs. And it should make everybody happy, because there's stuff out there that Democrats might think, oh, this is a good need, and it's probably the worst thing ever. But you might have some rich guy out there that wants to cover that for them. Well, good for them, special. Okay, go ahead and cover it, but we're not going to cover it with our tax dollars. It's, get the
Well,
private
I mean,
sector.
I just think it's so obvious here, like the Quality Leering Center,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, right? Like, that's
yeah,
not they're not getting away with this fraud when
right,
it's done in the private sector. The only reason that even happens is because you have some bureaucrat in St. Paul that really doesn't give a crap,
right,
or
right,
maybe it's hijacked by politics. That
right,
very well could be the case here.
right. It
I
could
don't
be.
have the evidence there, but that's very well it could be the case.
Right.
And they just keep paying this person that's not providing services. If this is done in the private sector, that doesn't happen like more than a day. It's dumb.
That's right, because they're going to hold them accountable.
Well,
You're going
yeah,
to,
I'm not
but
going to
guys,
give someone money if they're not
that's
providing
another thing
services.
too. I'm going to be the most transparent governor you ever seen. When I watch for deviations, 500 of my employees have my direct number, and they call me if there's a deviation. The leaders, of all these platforms in Minnesota, they better be calling if they see a problem or deviation. You don't wait for the third quarter, some report that the governor gets. No, you better be calling daily, because we fix it in real
Right.
time. Another problem, and I'm going to bring it up, maybe the other ones won't, is we have to be there's 8 states that have banned Sharia law. We need to be number 9. It's disgusting what's going on since Walz I have a business and Amazon's right next to me. They're telling you to shut your lines down for 5 times a day, stuff that doesn't match our Constitution. I'm sorry. We're one nation under God, and that God's a Christian nation. And the stuff that's going on when you bringing a bell and noise downtown and ringing these the call to prayer, whatever it is, and then you have in the Capitol a satanic statue, and you're being fair to the devil. It's disgusting. And Walz gets a little sign going, "Oh, you're a great guy. You're fair. You gave the devil his due." This stuff is. I'm sorry, but that's
What do
where I
you,
feel it. Huh?
okay, but what? Let me dig into that. I didn't think that would come up. You say ban Sharia law. I mean,
That's what other states have done. We have to, if it interferes
what
with
does
our
that mean? I mean,
Constitution, if it interferes with our Constitution, you'd have to look at like Tennessee, Louisiana. I can't. I can't even name them all right
Okay,
now.
I think I got an idea of what you're
But
saying.
here's an example.
But
So
Muslims have a right to practice their religion in America, right?
but if it interferes with your constitution. I'll give you an example. Cargill fired in January 3rd of 2016. They shut down Cargill's lines and they walked off the job, and Cargill fired him after 3 days. Okay, this is stuff that's happened. Amazon, Jeff Bezos
So
stood up.
you're referring to employment laws, right? That's what you're referring to here? Which
Employment laws
you
and
won't get
all
the
that other
disagreement
stuff.
from me on that.
What if you're in a neighborhood like Dearborn, Michigan? If you're in a neighborhood and you have I don't know, noise ordinances, whatever, and you're ringing this every morning, and you're sitting, you have to hear this. Your children have to hear this every morning. And what if there's a religion that says, you know what, every day you got to take 6 hours off from your job, and we're going to drive. Whatever it is, make something up. You follow me? It has to not violate our Constitution. And 8 states have already found they passed laws on this. And I think Florida's even going to try and do it. We need to do that because it's interfering. And because we're Minnesota nice, we had even more pressure on us here in Minnesota. Amazon in Shakopee, Minnesota, he was busing out Muslims to his thing, and they picketed him. They shut down his thing and said, "Hey, we want 5 breaks, not just what Minnesota says. You get 1 break every 10 or every 4 hours." You can't shut down his business because I'm sorry, if you can't come over, if you want Sharia law, stay where you're at. I'm serious. You can't. You have to assimilate to us. You have to our. It's just like we have problems in our schools right now. You're trying to, with I've talked to the teachers, and and it's not just the Muslims there, but that is part of the problem. If you have problems or slow children or whatever, the rules are here as such. You can't discipline them, and you certainly can't remove them because there's so much red tape you would go through. So our educations are suffering, and there are solutions to that, and but we've gone so far away from that. It's disgusting.
Okay, Mike, I've got probably about 7 minutes with you, so I want to kind of do a rapid fire, I guess, for lack of better terms, just on a
Okay.
couple of issues that I don't think I know where you stand on it. Guns is a big debate right now. The Democrats are trying to ban the AR-15. They're trying to ban magazines with capacities over 10. What's your stance on the Second Amendment, and what kind of laws should be passed here in Minnesota?
It's our Second Amendment. You have the right to keep and bear arms. I'm a hunter. I've used guns all my life. I have conceal and carry. It's already been proven that the places where you don't have guns, talk to Australia, talk to some of these cities where it's the biggest crime. The criminals still get their guns, everybody.
Do you support constitutional carry?
What's that?
Do you support constitutional carry? Do you know what that issue is? I know you're new to politics.
No, I don't.
Meaning that you don't need a carry permit by the government, you actually have the right already. This is passing in a bunch of states. I don't know what the numbers are.
I'd have to look into that. But if it's in, I guess what you're saying is without anybody checking into their stability,
the argument here would be the Second Amendment says government can't infringe on your right to keep and bear arms. Some people view, I would too, the permit system is infringing on that right. It maybe is not that intrusive, but it's still, the government shouldn't be in the issue of giving you a permit, for your right to keep and bear arms. So the idea is that you just have that right naturally. This is passed in, I think, over 20 states now. It's
if that's what it is, I would like that. Yeah, absolutely. I believe in that. I believe in that right. I mean, that's what you're given. It's your God-given right or your constitutional right. You've talked to. Well, keep going.
Yeah, let's do abortion. You're a Christian. What are your views on that? I'm as
pro-life as you can get.
Okay. So am I. Okay. And I think if we're being honest, which the left is not going to be honest, they never want to define when life begins. I think we have to define that at conception, but there are bills that are 20-week bills. And to me, it's like Minnesota right now, and you probably know this, Tim Walz signed into a bill that if a baby is born alive from a botched abortion, that baby will be allowed to die. Which is just,
I didn't even know that.
It's evil. It's absolutely evil. Yeah, that's one thing Action for Liberty does, is we keep track of the legislation and look into this stuff, and it's just absolutely evil. But of course, you can abort a baby up to the moment of birth. I know that's a rarity, but you can legally in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Do you support a 20-week bill, which would be probably taking care of saving a lot of babies' lives? Where would you stand on policy on this?
I'm I'm pro-life. I don't believe in any abortion. I mean, that's my Christian beliefs. I would do everything I could to completely get rid of abortion, but obviously it's already here. So anything that would better that to get us to the goal, I would sign it. I mean, if you're going from here to here, and that's just a stepping stone to get gone, of course I would. You would not, because it might be too long to ever go from here to here. I mean, with God, all things are possible. We've seen it the biggest surprise ever was the Supreme Court. Just when you think nothing like that could ever happen. And so, things can happen. We just had this conversation last night at the debates. And I was talking to a guy, and I said, yeah, I would support anything that keeps getting it to the end goal, which is zero.
Good.
But but to but to sit there and fight and put a bill that's going to just tie everything up to going from here to nothing, I think that's probably unrealistic in Minnesota. But like I say, with God, all things are possible, and that's where I stand.
Fair point. I want to just pull this up real quick. You did sign the Never Again pledge by Action for Liberty, saying that as a candidate for governor, you support and would sign into law the Never Again bill. It takes away the governor's unilateral emergency powers and ensures legislative oversight in times of emergency, and that you respect the civil liberties of Minnesotans at all times, including emergency. Mike, are you serious? Do you really want to give up that power if you're governor?
Absolutely. I watched in real time. I dealt with all these other governors, all the stuff they did with the virus and some of the stuff that they put in illegally. The Secretary of State's, the governors, and the attorney generals never did anything about it. It's disgusting because just in our election stuff alone, 13 states have went back to where it was prior to the 2020 election. And all the stuff that was put in illegally by governors is still in place. It's disgusting. So I'm all for that. Take away that right. I don't need it.
We've had up to a $21 billion budget surplus in the state of Minnesota. What would you do with a surplus as governor?
Give it back to the people. I don't need that much of a surplus. That means you're doing real good and you cut the taxes. You keep lowering them till maybe we have no income tax. You keep lowering that till you get a nice little teeter-totter. You got a little surplus and you're self-sustaining. It's called cash flowing, everybody. That's what I do in my business every day. When things are good, the employees get extra, but we make sure we still cash flow. Taxes, property taxes, gone. Sales tax, that's first. Income tax gone. These are what we need to do.
Would you support eliminating the income tax in Minnesota?
Absolutely. If you do these other things that I have coming, you got to get the money from somewhere. And like I said, support these other things with use the private sector. People want to help. Everyone's bashing millionaires and billionaires. I gave millions upon millions, tens of millions of dollars before all this election stuff when I had to pour money into that. I mean, people want to help, and let's do it that way. So absolutely, I'd like to. You got to. Yeah, obviously, you need money from somewhere, but there's other ways to get it. And boy, wouldn't that be great to have no property or no income tax?
Well, yeah, both. Yeah, both of those. Yeah, property and
in
income.
Our healthcare. I mean, one of the biggest things here in talking to people is healthcare. I know that from me having my business. My business, even paying half. I mean, of employees, it's crushing small business. It's crushing people. That is the biggest problem as far as it's even worse than some of these taxes and regulations we have in Minnesota. That's been number one to attack. And you guys got to realize, I know I got a friend and I got people at that level, not just bringing them in, but to get advice to things that have worked and things that are, that's one thing where I think I have a big advantage. And not to say everything our president's done is right or this administration, but I can sure see now, here's what's done wrong or here's what's done right. And just like in MyPillow, when we have a deviation, if it's a good deviation, you better find out why that happened and copy it. And if it's a bad one, find out why it happened and don't ever do it again. Simple.
It's been good getting to know you, Mike. I honestly, the way I prep for these interviews is very little prep because I kind of want the conversation to go the way it goes. Right. And it was interesting learning a little bit more about your addiction and how you got into politics. And so far, you sound really good on a lot of the issues. So yeah. I love it. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, you guys go to MykeLindellGov.com, and we're going to be posting all this stuff that I've these solutions. And you know what? People say, "Well, don't put them up there. The other candidates will copy." I don't care. I care about
Right.
Minnesota. Go ahead and use my stuff.
That's
If they,
winning in politics.
I mean, I don't hide anything. I'm as transparent as they come. But you guys, I do need your help and prayers because I think I am the right person at the right time in history, and it's MykeLindellGov.com.
Okay, very good. Thanks, Mike. I know you got another media appearance, so thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
All right, awesome. And I appreciate you guys' comments here at home. It's a fascinating interview. I honestly I don't prep too much on these things because I'm just a little fearful it'll bias it. This is maybe why politicians generally don't come on my show. People that are actually serving in office have a record. I will be a little bit more pointed to going at things that they voted for, statements that they've made. I would have actually asked Mike a little bit more about the election of 2020, but the fear that I have, and I do want to have that discussion maybe on back. The fear I do have on that is that's what the media is going to try to do. Is they're going to try to make this election all about Trump, and I don't just mean with Mike. Right? Mike maybe doesn't emerge as the candidate. They're going to try to make it about Donald Trump. That is their marching orders. And I don't know if I want to participate in that, Like that's just falling right into the trap that the media always tries to designate for us. I don't like that. So anyhow, I guess in many regards, it's just fun to kind of go and get to know somebody. And he's good on the issues. I just honestly, I assumed he was. I just didn't know. Right? $10 Roma Brand. If I lived in Minnesota, I'd vote for Mike, loving his ideas. I did highlight it, but I didn't get a chance. Mike's got a lot of words. So this was from Glenn Cotton. $20. Praying God give you an increase in wisdom, Mike, Mr. Lindell, to govern here. Very good words by Glenn Cotton, who I haven't seen in the audience lately. So good to have you back, Glenn. Susie had an interesting. Susie Scarella says the policies Mike is sharing I like, but it makes me feel anxious listening to him. Can't help it. Yeah, I think he needs some coaching on that. No doubt about it. There's a certain energy he brings. It's interesting. Did it exist before crack cocaine, and crack cocaine was like the way to deal with that energy? There were a lot of questions that if I had 3 hours, we would have gone down those roads. And I'm like, God, I gotta ask some questions about policy. What's the point in the show? Just getting to know somebody on a personal level. Fascinating story, right? But geez, you gotta learn a little bit more about it. So yeah, that is interesting. Sue Anderson says, "Thank you, love Mike Lindell. He's a very charming individual, and I do appreciate him saying." Engaging with the Epstein files, it's really where Trump lost me, was the lies about the Epstein files. I just can't get over that. I just think in general, lying is a bad thing. And I know that's a crazy thing, asking politicians not to lie. I mean, why would you do that, Jake? But can we not ask for politicians to just be honest with us? There's some times where Donald Trump's like the most honest politician, and a lot of us kind of like it when he does that. And he's not supposed to say those things, but we kind of like it when he does. But just don't be lying about, Venezuela, and don't be lying about Epstein files. Like, be honest with American people. Tell us the story. We had 4 years of Joe Biden lying. We didn't even have Joe Biden lying. We had the Democrat machine lying to us, telling us he's sharp as a tack. We had Tim Walz telling us he was sharp as a tack. Oh, it's unbelievable. Razzle Dazzle said, good intro and discussion. He'll likely come back post caucus would be a good time. I might even have him. Yeah, I'll probably have him after caucus. I would like to dive in a little bit more. I realized when we're halfway into it, and I really was interested in his personal story, hearing it firsthand, that I might not be able to ask this question about the election of 2020, because to me, I want to hear him succinctly make the argument and how it was stolen. The election of 2020 was rigged, folks. It's 100% rigged. There were laws changed, and not by legislatures across the country, including Minnesota. Mail-in ballots rigged. There was a coordinated attempt by our intelligence services and the FBI to bury a story that probably would have turned the election the opposite way. And what I'm talking about, the Hunter Biden story. So was the election rigged? Yes, of course it was rigged for those reasons. However, I can't prove that it was stolen. When Donald Trump was on Joe Rogan's podcast and asked that question, he couldn't clarify it. Myke Lindell's convinced. I feel so bad that I didn't get that question out there, but I felt like with an hour time, we were not going to be able to get to any of the questions if I asked that question. So that was why I decided not to do it. Fault me for that all you will. We'll get to it next time. And I think he's more than willing to answer that question. But I did want to, and I just wrote a couple things there. I wanted to talk about the Never Again bill. He talked a lot about abortion or COVID, which was really good. Guns sounds very solid on. It's funny. He didn't know what constitutional carry was, but quite frankly, he's new to politics. Like, he's very new. So I get the sense he probably doesn't follow this stuff too closely. But it sounds like he supported that policy. We'll send that to him. Abortion sounds very good. Spending taxes he covered on himself. Surplus, right answer. I didn't get to omnibus bills. I'm going to ask him about that. I was also going to address like his persona. I think was that Susan or Susie? Yeah, Susie's question. Just the persona that he gives, and he's kind of the media paints this picture of him, and I think he leans into it a little too much. And how is he going to overcome that? Because I think that'll be off-putting to a lot of people. It would have been interesting to hear his answer to that question. But as an individual, getting to know him, fascinating. Might be a fun guy to, I was going to say, get a beer with. No, I don't think we would do that. Maybe go duck hunting together. Maybe that's what we should be doing. Drink some coffee. Maybe he doesn't drink coffee either. In M57 says, I like a stance on abortion, unlike weak punk Jensen. Does Jensen even have an official position on abortion anymore? I don't know. All right. We are going to go to the post show for our premium insiders. If you would like to support the show, this is one of the best ways to support the show, especially if you're someone that's new. Become a premium insider right now. I'm posting this link on all the chat forums here. Bam. There we go. You can click on that link. Otherwise, you can go to truthhurtsnews.com, click on support us. $8 a month. It keeps the show moving, keeps us independent, other than our great sponsors, which is EliteGuardianMN.com. Speaking of concealed carry courses, there's a way to get your concealed carry in Minnesota. It's what we call permit to carry. As the law still stands, you do need a permit to carry every 5 years. Also, the sponsor is Alpine Cabinetry in the great city of St. Cloud, Minnesota. Speaking of another American manufacturing company, actually making cabinetry. Does that count as manufacturing? I think so. Great owner, great patriot. So Alpine Cabinetry in St. Cloud, in the great city of St. Cloud. Love that city. Great city. So anyhow, we'll be live on the post show. Thank you to our Rumble rants today. Glenn Cotton, good to see you back. Please share this show around. We're getting some good traffic. I hope to take the show to just totally different levels here in 2026. I'm going to say that for the premium insiders. I'm going to tell you my possible show tomorrow. I'm going to say that for you premium insiders. So click on that link if you want to become a premium insider. It gives you a free account at Locals, and then you get the access to all our stuff, and it's going to be better. Oh yeah, Razzle Dazzle remind me. Or it's $88 per year. Yes, you get like a month off if you do this. This is a great way to keep us independent news media people, new media types, the alternate media, whatever you want to call us. It gives us the ability to keep the show going. There's lots of costs for this stuff, and I think we're doing good work. I'm in that same category as Nick Shirley, not at the same level. Nick, good job on getting that thing viral. But a lot of us dig into this stuff. Like Mike just learned today, what Jesse and I brought to everyone's attention a year ago, that Tim Walz, or was that 2 years ago? That was over 2 years ago. That literally Tim Walz signed into law a bill that allows aborted baby to be born, or a botched abortion baby to be born alive and then just put to death, which to me is just as evil as it gets. And I didn't even bring this up. I'm guessing he doesn't know this, that Tim Walz signed into law protections for people that have sexual attractions to minors. That's in the Minnesota Human Rights Act now. So, and that was another story we broke. It's insane. Like, and we've done plenty of shows about this, the evilness, like the defending of, whatever you want to do as an adult, transgender surgeries, drag shows, that's fine. But these drag shows for minors, and then we've shown this, like, well, we broke the story on Arctic Cat, great old school Minnesota snowmobile company, right? ATV company that was sponsoring an LGBTQIA2 plus organization, St. Cloud, that was doing drag shows with minors and literally bragging about minors getting a reduced rate and no tipping unless they asked for it. Like, this is the stuff we bring to your attention. Oh, post show, I have another update I want to bring you on the Maddie Kingsbury case. You guys remember that? We're probably the only new media, I think, that even cover that story, mostly because one of the show's fans and good supporters, Carmel and Tim, were in the family of Maddie Kingsbury, who was murdered, and her boyfriend did it, and he was convicted last year. Got a story update. They were in the Supreme Court today. I'll bring that up in the post show. That might be a special show coming up. Lots of stuff to discuss in the post show. Join me in the post show. We'll be live in 30 seconds. For everyone else, we will be back. Could be back tomorrow if the show works out. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Take care. God bless. Thanks for watching.